Good afternoon and welcome. People are coming and joining us. Good to see you all. We're just going to give people a little bit of time to let people enter, because we've got some people in the waiting room still. And welcome this afternoon, this evening, this morning, whatever time it is with you. That's the wonderful thing about being global. We have people from all over the world with us, which is fantastic, including one of our speakers who we're going to have to keep him propped up and awake. Wonderful. I'm going to give you just another minute to let a few more people in, and we'll kick it off, because as we're being recorded and live, welcome to those who are watching us live, and those who are watching the recording. Sorry you couldn't make it with us, but I'm glad you're listening anyway. Fantastic. So one or two more people just joining us, and then I shall proceed. So it's going to be a really exciting webinar. I'm looking forward to this so much. It's all about strengthening parental engagement in a digital world. So obviously post-COVID, everything is far more digital than it ever was. And it's really interesting to see how we can get back in touch with the parents who have been a bit of a mainstay over the with the pandemic anyway. So this is going to be a really interesting conversation we're going to have. So this evening, we have got some amazing speakers for you. I'm going to obviously introduce the agenda for the day is introductions. There are, as you'll notice, there are a couple of question and answer sections, but please use the chat. Introduce yourselves and say hi in the chat. But any questions, if they pop into your mind, put them in the chat, because we'll have a quick look at the chat and see if there's any questions in there for that session as well, to remind yourself. There will be a bit of a panel discussion, and hopefully you will all participate as well. And I am going to make you all smile for a photograph in a minute, because it's always nice to see who's there. So yeah, I'm giving you 2 minutes notice to brush your hair, practice your smiles, and turn your videos on, because we will be going through and taking a photo. So we all ready? Can we all have a smile, please? So for 2 seconds, everyone who's with us at the moment, and I'm going to attack you again later and towards the end to do this again. But at the moment, everybody who's with us, can we all smile for a couple of seconds? And I need to shut my mouth, because it's always open and my eyes closed for these photographs. Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And it'd be nice to keep it on, because it's always really nice to see who we're talking to, especially for the speakers too. It's nice to know that you've got live people behind those screens. We're all looking very posh with our blue screens at the moment, which is nice. So as I said, it's a joint webinar from Global School Alliance and School Management Plus. And it's our first one, and I can guarantee there will be more to come. We're planning on doing this sort of termly, so it'll be at 3 a year, on hopefully very topical themes that you appeal to people. And we're always open to suggestions. If anyone wants a webinar that you think we could get some good speakers on, and you want us to do it for you, we're always open for suggestions. Give us some ideas. Okay, so those of you who are not members of the Global School Alliance, and I can see an awful lot of our members and some fantastic familiar faces out there, welcome to everybody. But the Global School Alliance is basically an online community where we are connecting schools and educators around the world. It's a fantastic, and it's a really friendly family place. So that the aim for that is to help members collaborate, unite on best practice, with the common goal really of improving outcomes for students around the world. We're looking at global citizenship now, aren't we? We're becoming global schools. And if one thing the pandemic has taught us is how connected we are in the world and how small the world is. So having, creating global citizens now for the future who can impact on the future, on the world of society out there, is very important. And I think some real great best practice being shared at the moment, and some of it will be tonight. So the Global School Alliance is a free online community. We do regular webinars like this. We have a What's Exciting in Education. We have a monthly theme of our own, an education conference. There are lots of sponsorships going on, lots of activities to get involved in, like competitions. We have a lovely cultural postcard competition to get involved in. We have the main aspect of it, though, is really connecting to make some virtual partnerships using our platform, to do some online projects, getting students participating and sharing culture, sharing language, and connecting people that way. So you can join, schools can join, teachers can join, and we also have ambassador pros who are more proactive members who help us, contribute to the platform and increase the membership too. But there are basically loads to get involved in. So I recommend going to the platform, signing up for free, and just finding out what would suit you on there. Get involved with as little or as much as you like for free. Like I said, at the moment we have over 5,000 members, which is fantastic, from over 100 countries around the world, some of whom I'd never heard before I started working here. It's fantastic to greet people from all over the world. And connecting. So that's the Global School Alliance. And then I'm just going to hand over because Andrew is going to introduce School Management Plus. Are you there, Andrew?
Hi, Tony. Thank you so much. And firstly, welcome to the audience. Thanks so much for being a part of the session today. School Management Plus are delighted to be working with Global School Alliance and with Tony and with the team there. They're doing such fantastic work in bringing educators and leaders around the world together online, and it's such an important thing now that we share and support each other more than ever, I think. But just to touch very quickly on what School Management Plus do as an organisation. We're the leading UK independent and international school content platform in the sector, and we're really driven by a purpose and a mission which is all around informing, educating and advancing educators and leaders around the world. We do that by sharing expert content through a variety of different mediums. So we have our content platform, schoolmanagementplus.com, and that's really anchored with 3 expert magazines and then an online community too called the Friday Club. But the magazines we have UK Independent School magazine titled Independent School Management Plus, and that goes out to over 2,500 fee-paying independent schools in the UK, both in print and digitally. And then we have our 2 digital international school titles, so International School Magazine itself, and our newly launched Wellbeing and International School Magazine too, which has been launched very successfully just in the last couple of weeks. Those titles go out to over 12,000 schools digitally every term, but you can access all of the publications, both the current issues and the back catalogues, by visiting schoolmanagementplus.com and going to our publications section. And just again, relevant to this evening, we've also launched the Friday Club fairly recently, and that's a school marketing admissions professional community. It's entirely free. It's a weekly newsletter, and every week we interview a director of marketing or a director of admissions from either an independent school in the UK or an international school, to understand what's going on with their school, how they're communicating with parents, how they're engaging prospective parents. And again, like with the Global School Alliance, it's just designed to be a really supportive community for that part of the education sector. So yeah, that's us. And it's a pleasure to be here today, and I'll pass you back to Tony.
Thanks, Andrew. Like I say, it's all about connections, isn't it? Participating and connecting around the world. So we're going to make you engage a little bit with us. So thank you for everyone who's there. So we have a poll for you. This is the first question, which obviously is to kick off where we're going with tonight's theme. So basically, how good do you feel your communication is with parents at present? We're going to launch the poll, and if you could please participate and click on it. Everyone should be able to see it. If you can't see it, let us know in the chat. But please, oh yes, you can obviously see it because people are participating. Thank you. Give you a few minutes to log your answers, which is amazing. Nobody is filling in the poll, I notice. Everybody, it's fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, I think we've probably got everybody. Okay, so can you show the results there now? Yasmin, can you show the results? Wonderful. So basically, nearly 60% are good and are still working hard to improve it. We have 15% who say there's room for improvement, but we still have a healthy 27% who says it's excellent and they have good parental. Maybe you can offer some advice and carry on with the sharing that with us tonight as well. So fantastic. Thank you for participating in the poll. I need to, how do I stop that on my screen now? I must admit, I can see it, but I don't know if you can. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So we've done the poll. Okay, so like I said, we have some amazing speakers this afternoon. We've got Matt from Learning Ladders. I think he's going to start us off, and we've got Wayne, who is staying awake because he's in New Zealand, and it's an amazing hour in the morning for him. Ludmilla is joining us from Moldova as well, and then we've got David and Christina, who are going to be part of the panel discussion with Andrew. So I know that we've got some great things to hear, so I'm actually going to hand almost straight over to Matt, if that's okay. Are you okay to share your screen? And oh, I beg your pardon, is it Wayne first? I've got the order wrong. We have Wayne first, is that right? Yasmin, can you confirm I've got the right order? Is it Wayne first?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
wonderful.
it's
Wayne
Matt first.
Wonderful. Wayne, are you okay to share? I'll stop sharing my screen if you'd like to share.
Yeah,
your
and
screen.
I'll share mine. I'll jump on to.
Thank you very much.
I'll jump onto mine to share. Just give me 2 seconds. Where are we? Here we go. And if I go slideshow from the beginning, there we go. I think that's me. Well, from a New Zealand point of view, kia ora koutou, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Here it's a wonderful 4 a.m.ish in the morning. So if I do tend to not be as articulate as I normally am, so please do excuse me. I'm headmaster of Wanganui Collegiate School, which is on the west coast of the North Island in New Zealand. And I've been here as headmaster for the last 4 years. And I guess what we're trying to do is to share some thoughts as what we've been able to work through here at Wanganui Collegiate School. Again, it's about strengthening the parental engagement in the digital world, and I think we'll be able to continue to work through those sorts of things through this presentation. It's about seizing the opportunity. This is the one thing that we talked about and I was asked to be able to do. And one of the things that COVID-19 obviously provided us was a level of lockdown, but it created an opportunity for communication. And the element in regards to communication, whether it be through an online medium, the key thing, as in a lockdown, and you could have been next door or you could have been 10,000 miles away as you are from me at the moment, but the communication needed to be the same because we couldn't have that face to face. So we needed to have a look at it, and we seized that opportunity. It couldn't be any level of communication, because what we found, I think everyone found in communication aspects through this lockdown period of the last 18 months or so, is that everyone was on devices. Everyone was, 2 clicks, 3 clicks, 4 clicks away. So the communication was just that. A lot of it was just a river of words. It needed to have a purpose. And that's what we found very clear, is that our purpose of communication needs to be very clear as to what we wanted to say. We had this online program as well called Schoolbox. It's an Australian company. I have to declare that being an Australian in New Zealand has its challenging moments, especially when it comes to rugby, but majority of the time we're okay. But at the same time, our Schoolbox opportunity provided a learning management system. Like it's the same as Google Classrooms and a range of different types of things, but it allowed us to be cloud-based. It allowed it to have clear assessment and reporting procedures and analytics, which was important for us. It allowed for resources for teaching and learning and within the class aspects. It was a one-stop shop. Everything that we needed to communicate through, whether it be for students or staff or parents, they had access to it through Schoolbox. Collaborative learning tools. We still were able to have those learning tools where staff, students, parents could collaborate together, which was hugely important. Assisted lessons and resources, so that we didn't have to go too far. Staff couldn't have to, because there was no blueprint for this, was there? And that was a really challenging time. But the technology on online learning assisted really good resources and lessons, and we're able to take that forward now. This was one of the incredible things, is that we increased involvement in partnership with parents. The online aspect, because of the fact that students were in a lounge room, in a room, whatever, and parents were more over the shoulder, what are you up to type thing, the partnership with parents was really important. What it did do, though, was that it actually increased student academic achievement. And we'll get to a little bit of that in a second. This is just a general overview of a chemistry class, where we've got aspects across the top. You'll see all the different things, and this is Schoolbox, and everything goes from different pages and different rooms, much like any learning management system. But what the students were able to do was to read, to work through, connect with teachers, and be able to work through that from a learning point of view. The second part was obviously an element where we needed to connect the school, because we've got a very strong house system. We're independent integrated school here in New Zealand. house system is still very, very strong. So we needed parents and students to stay connected to their house, but also to the wider aspects of the school. And that school box allowed us to do that. What we did find, and what was really important, is that through all of this, was it about character education. I couldn't communicate to our community if I modelled stress, because if I modelled stress, parents would be stressed, etc., and it falls down that tree. And it was important for us to ensure, and for us as educators, I think worldwide, is that if we're talking about global citizenship and we're talking about the next community of leaders, whether that they're going to be families or business or society, and perhaps even governments. And goodness knows, for instance, you know, some of the modelling that we've had from some of our world leaders at the moment, or past 18 months, we would want our students, current students, to model a lot better best practice perhaps than what we're seeing at the moment. It had to be a calm, measured approach, and so that we can bring that parent community together, which was absolutely vital for us. So in all of that, we developed a 6 points of communication. And whatever we communicated, whether it be at a student-based, staff-based, or a parental-based, but most importantly, a parental-based, no communication would go out unless these 6 points were covered. One was that we had to remain calm, regardless of the information that was posed to us. You know, we would, as everyone did in the last 18 months, you were posed to looking at a screen for a press conference and finding out what was actually going to happen. Regardless of the information, we need to remain calm. So if you remain calm, you're able to provide some really good, clear understanding of what's the next part. So that's the first tick. Second, be clear. Act on true sources of information. A number of schools that I know that I helped and worked through this period of time was trying to just get, they were just getting news stories off the internet, rather than going to the true source for us, which was the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. Nothing passed through that wasn't true on true sources of information. From that true source of information, if you remain calm, you're able to digest it, you will then be able to get a clear understanding. And if you're able to understand that, you were able to communicate that to your parents. And that was the key thing for us, making sure that we've got really good information, we were calm, and we were able to have a clear understanding of what was going on. That's another tick. Empathy. We knew that wherever you were in the world, whether we were communicating to our international parents in Asia, some in Germany, we had students from Germany and Spain. We had to show a level of empathy. We had to show that we felt that we were on the journey with them, whether they were locked down on the farm, or whether they were literally next door in a city or wherever they were. The level of empathy was hugely important for us. With empathy, we had to show a level of kindness. Now, that's really a key aspect in all of those sorts of things, is that we were kind, we knew what we had to communicate through to our parent body. We showed that level of kindness to an nth degree, because that way, with all those others, it was really important to make sure that we were clear, we were calm, we had kindness, and we understood what people were going through. One of the other key aspects for us was ensuring that any of our communication, and we still do with these sorts of things as well, is that we had a clear date for our next communication. That's another tip. So importantly, when I left, when we go through our 6 points and we had a clear date, it was important for our next parents, because what we were getting as well is to say, well, we haven't heard from the school. We haven't, oh, well, we're hearing from Wayne in the school on, in 2 days' time or in 4 days' time. And that had a sense of, oh, okay, the school's got it. The school's onto it. We know what we're waiting for. And then the information coming out from that was even better, because we had a wider engagement because of the fact they knew when the reading was coming out. And I think that was a really important part for us, making sure that we knew when the next communication was, and so that parents knew as well. Don't know if you can see that all that well on the screen, but that's just a, I thought it was important to capture some of our parental feedback for you that you can see, and through our lockdown aspects. But as you can see, there's words that are popping out, excellent but clear, supportive. There's a level of kindness, there's empathy, there's a number of touch points all through that. Even things too, a shout out to particular teachers who was their hero, and has been amazing. Those, that's really important. So that really gave us a level of understanding of that. We knew that our communications were getting right to the point to our parents through this process. So we just continually followed those 6 points, and taking it forward, that's what we do now, ensuring that any communication, whether it be through from my head office as the headmaster, through to our board, through to our housemasters, etc., really important that we've got that level of understanding. So that's been a real key take point. For us, it is about that. And I think that this is an important aspect, for us, with the aspect of Global School Alliance, school management. If we're working through and connecting the next level of societal and global leaders, it is really important that we have that knowledge. But even more essential is the development of character to create and to enhance that knowledge to be of not just good influence, great influence. And that is going to be an important aspect for us as world educators across this period of time to ensure that the knowledge, yes, great, you can get your A levels and you can get your IB and you can do all those sorts of things, depending on what curriculum you're offering. But it is honesty, integrity were the same 100 years ago as what they are now, as what they will be in 100 years' time. And we need to, as educators and world educators, ensure that we've got that in play to be of great influence. And we can't model that if we're stressing, if we're not remaining calm, if we're not clear, and if we don't have a real true purpose in the communication and bringing our parents online, because it's our parents who are going to be ambassadors for our school. And they're the ones that are at the dinner parties, etc., throughout, talking about their schools, or in the car park, the classic car park mafia. As they talk, it's really important that they're alongside and they show that true ambassadorialship for each and every school. So I hope that that's me. I hope that gives you in a short 10-minute span a little bit of what we've gone through at Wanganui Collegiate School. Again, I thank the Global School Alliance and I thank the and School Management Plus for allowing me to be a part of tonight's or this afternoon's or this morning's, whatever part of the world you're at. And I thank you, and I wish you all the very, very best.
Thank you so much, Wayne. That was wonderful. And I'm so sorry for confusing everybody. My PowerPoint confused me and I've thrown everything out of order now. So thank you for jumping in then. Actually, it should have been Matt who was starting us off with leading ladders. So Matt, apologies to Matt, and thank you so much, Wayne. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. Matt, are you okay to share screen and lead us in with your information? Thank you.
Yes, that's fine, no problem. I'm quite happy for Wayne to jump in, given the time in the morning there. I'm impressed that you were as focused as you were. I thought that was great. I'd echo pretty much everything that you said there. So let me just get my deck up. Hopefully you can all see that now. Can you see that, Tony and everyone? Yeah, great, okay. All right, so I was going to kick off. So I'm going to kick off with a little bit of broader information about parental engagement. My name is Matt. I'm the CEO of a company called Learning Ladders. I founded it about 7 years ago. I used to be a teacher here in England, in London, in sort of inner city state schools, very much, I guess, the opposite of Wayne's environment in many ways. And I guess really what I was going to talk to you about today was a little bit of the journey that we've been on and that our schools have been on in the whole area of parental engagement. Parental engagement, parental involvement in learning has pretty much been my life for the last sort of 6 or 7 years. So not just sort of lockdown, but long before that, we were looking at how can we upskill parents so they can help their children at home. And it's obviously a very different dynamic in primary to secondary. So that's the first thing to sort of say. My experience as a teacher, as a primary school teacher, And the majority of schools that I work with are through schools. So we work primarily with the primary department. We will work with secondary and early years, but that's really where a lot of the focus for what I'm going to talk about today is. And I guess probably the starting point for me is I get invited to speak at lots of conferences, and that's great. As a teacher, once a teacher, always a teacher. And as a teacher, I'm interested in children doing well. I'm not especially interested in parental engagement. I'm not especially interested in data. I'm not especially interested in curriculum design. Whatever silo you might want to put things in, fundamentally, I'm interested in children doing well. And as a class teacher, what became apparent to me when I was teaching, and in teaching in a very diverse school where I had children in my class whose parents were in prison, I had children in my class whose father was a cabinet minister at the time, possibly should have been in prison, but that's a different story. You know, the whole range of families that you get in a lot of London schools, the one thing that was really common was that the parents were the ones driving the children's attitudes to learning, and they were the ones that were really driving what goes on at home. So something became really apparent to me very, very quickly. And that's been the basis on which we've set up learning ladders. And that really is the simple introduction. If you're serious about improving children's outcomes, however you define that, and that's a conference in itself, then you have to involve children in the learning, involve parents in children's learning, particularly at primary, particularly when they're younger. It really is that simple. And for the last however many years, we've been banging that particular drum. And it's difficult. As class teachers, we are the kind of people who will spend our holidays trawling through markets, looking for something that could be a great lesson starter. We'll work until 2 o'clock in the morning, just trying to get our lesson that 5% better. We'll trawl the internet for resources. We'll go to CPD events at 4 o'clock in the morning. We'll go at weekends. We'll do all that kind of stuff. We are an obsessive bunch. It's a vocation. So it's quite hard sometimes to get your head around the fact that actually, for primary age children, the thing that will make the greatest difference is engaging the adults that are not in your classroom in their learning. And that's been shown time and time again. That became very clear to me when I was teaching. So I then started doing a bit of research around it. And it turns out there's actually quite a large body of research around it. Not a lot from the UK, I'm slightly embarrassed to say, but quite a lot from Australia, quite a lot from America. And basically, it's very, very consistent. What parents do with their children at home is far more significant in terms of children's outcomes than anything else that you can influence. This is critical, things you can influence. And if you look at a lot of the sort of studies in this area, there are various headlines. A lot of people, John Hattie's very popular. He has a sort of headline statement that parental engagement over a student's career can add 2 or 3 years. That's 2 or 3 years equivalent by getting the adults at home involved in the children's learning. And critically, what we talk about here, when we talk about getting the adults at home involved, is this can be any adult. It doesn't have to be the parent. It can be an older sibling. It can be a grandparent. It can be a tutor. It can be a chauffeur. You know, it can be anyone you like. It can be a neighbor, but the adults at home. And they need to be involved in the learning in a very specific education-focused way. So they're involved week in, week out with the specific objectives that that child is currently learning. This is not attending parents' evenings and going to sports days. Those are super valuable, but for different reasons. This is not moaning at your children to make sure they do homework. That's a different thing. This is showing an interest in their education and supporting them day to day, day in, day out. And that is super, super critical. Now, the very good news is that we know that parents want to be more involved. This data is pre-pandemic. So we did a survey here in England of a couple of thousand parents, and we asked them a whole load of questions around would they like to know more about what's going on in school? And yeah, 9 out of 10 of them would. Would they like to understand how to help their children more? Yes, absolutely they would. And though that data obviously skewed and changed over lockdown as parents were forced to do it, but generally speaking, we always say, parents want to be superheroes to their children, and we have the tools when it comes to learning to help them do that. We can give them that cape so they know how to help their children at home. But it can be challenging. A lot of parents, even at primary level, don't have sufficient math skills to be able to help them. 1 in 4 adults have lower math skills than an average 9-year-old. A lot of schools have to manage multiple languages. We work with hundreds of schools around the world, and most of them have very international communities. It's very difficult as a class teacher to engage your parent body in detail every single week, individualized for every child, and add on multiple languages and cultures on top of that, and multiple educational experiences. So without doubt, it is absolutely a challenge, but the prize is enormous. And Wayne touched on this. Post-pandemic, we have a unique opportunity to build back better, to steal everybody's phrase. Let's not go back to what we used to do before. We have had this amazing situation where parents have been really actively involved in their children's learning. We did another survey after lockdown, and we found that 66% of parents said they had a much greater respect for teachers. Now they had an appreciation of the detail that goes into teaching and learning and the sheer volume of content that their children have to get through. We can build on that positivity. We can build on the fact that schools now have lots of tech and lots of systems to interact with these whole areas. And we're already seeing simple things like parents' evenings. A lot of schools are sticking with online parents' evenings. Why wouldn't you? It works extremely well. There's a lot of stuff that we can build on. But fundamentally, if you're going to unlock parent power, the research shows, and we've shown this time and time again, you have to do it very, very specifically around objective level learning. And you have to upskill parents so they can be co-scaffolders of learning. There's a lady called Dr. Debbie Pusher, who some of you will have heard of. She talks about parents and teachers walking hand in hand. I think it's a lovely expression and a way to think about this co-scaffolding of learning. But it can be really, really difficult for a school. How on earth can you upskill all of your parents remotely on demand in multiple languages? You're going to need a system. Obviously, I'm going to try and sell you our system, but there are ways of doing that. You're going to need help. You can't possibly do it yourself. So that's what we talk about. We know from the research that for meaningful parental engagement to happen, the children have to know their learning objectives. Now, this is a really simple point, but one that's sometimes overlooked. Effective parental engagement starts in class. If children are not used to taking ownership of their learning and discussing their learning in class, they're not magically going to start doing it when they get home. So the conversations that parents have with their children, primary age children, what did you do at school today? What are you learning? How are you going to know when you've achieved it? If they're not having those conversations in class, they're not suddenly going to do them at home. So we have to start parental engagement by having an ethos within the schools of giving children ownership of their learning. That makes them more resilient. It makes them more flexible when they have to adapt to blended learning or remote learning. And we've seen that over the last 2 years. Schools that adapted to remote learning really well had a really strong sense of pupil agency around their learning. Schools that struggled more was where it was maybe the learning was drip fed to them. And they had to suddenly change not just systems, but cultures and methodology of how they were teaching. So get the children involved in their learning, get them to understand it, then they're really well placed to have the conversations at home. But the adult needs to know what's going on at home. So you have to communicate to the parents very specifically, individualized to each child, this is exactly what your child is learning this week in this subject. They are doing split digraphs, photosynthesis, number bonds to 10. This is where they're up to, and this is how you can help. That last bit is the critical bit. When you're dealing with primary age children, they will need an adult to co-scaffold that learning in place of the teacher. We can upskill parents and any other adults at home to be that co-scaffolder. And that's what we do at Learning Ladders. That's the whole purpose of our system, is to enable schools to design whatever curriculum they like, teach it in school, assess it, data, all that kind of stuff. But fundamentally upskill parents so they then know how to help at home. So, bit of a summary, has to be part of a whole school strategy. I speak at lots of conferences where I speak either about data and analytics, or I speak about curriculum design, or I speak about parental engagement. It's the same challenge. It's improving children's learning. It has to be a part of the whole school strategy. It has to be based on a needs analysis of your particular community, because no two schools are going to be the same. and it has to be focused on the students' learning. It's no good just broadcasting information and potentially letting people return some information. Yes, I've done it or something. It has to be a genuine engagement, and there has to be regular reviews, because you want to start conversations. Anywhere in learning, we would argue it's about conversations. We talk endlessly about conversations about learning, conversations in the classroom, conversations between teachers, conversations between parents and their children. That's what we want to do. But we have to do it without overloading teachers. Teachers are super busy. If they're spending time reinventing resources, they're wasting their time. You can do this live. So, bit of a pitch for what we do. That's exactly what we do. It's a big system. If you're interested in that, the guys in the office will do the full pitch, but it involves curriculum design, assessment, data, publishing, resources, parental engagement, and everything. The critical bit for today is every single parent gets a login for every single child, and it will automatically upskill that parent. So every single day they know how to help that child with whatever they're learning. It's in over 100 languages. It covers reading, writing, maths, and science. And it literally breaks down the curriculum, and we'll say, okay, Matt, tonight, your daughter is learning this at school. Here's what she's done, here's how she's getting on, and here is how you help. The school determines this is how we want you to help. And we know this works. We've just done a study with UCL here in the UK, and schools that switch to this approach are seeing an 11% increase in their SATs results within 2 years across every child and every subject on average. It makes a massive difference. So, quick summary. Obviously, we're on a parental engagement conference, so clearly everybody is open-minded, and the poll suggested that at the beginning. It's a sort of self-serving sample in my space. So you've got to involve parents in granular level stuff. Use technology to help you get involved in granular conversations about learning. If you want any advice, reach out. We've been doing this for years, not just through lockdown, and we can connect you with different schools, different case studies and stuff. And I think what Wayne was saying is 100% right. This is a community. This is a community of international schools, of domestic schools in different territories. And what we've really found lockdown has done is it's even more than ever, schools are prepared to share, collaborate, and I think that's been fantastic. So if you are interested, Stella will be able to do a proper demo. If you want to find out many more about the research, drop me an email. I can send you the papers, because sometimes you have to pay for them downloading and all this kind of stuff. And I'll hang around for the Q&A. But hopefully that wasn't too much out of order, Tony, for you.
That was amazing. Thank you. Like I say, sorry, you should have been first. Like it should have been, but yes, it's a great introduction. Like I say, it's all about parental engagement, and I think it proves it in the poll. I'm just trying to see if anyone has any questions for Matt. Oh, and Wayne. Sorry, Wayne. But does anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourself and shout out, or put your hand up, or put a question in the chat. Does anybody have any questions? Come on, someone must have a question. It was so interesting. Oh,
Very welcome. You've let me off lightly.
They have, haven't they? No worries. Maybe if you think of questions as we go along, you can always stick it into the chat, and we can catch up later. There'll be another session for questions and answers, which means we're actually rolling along quite quickly now. So I will move on, if that's okay. I'll say, if you do think of any questions, put them into the chat, and we will get back to them. So the next person is going to be Ludmilla, and Ludmilla, I'm sharing my screen, aren't I, for your presentation? But would you like to say hi, and I shall get your presentation up for you. Sorry.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to represent the Republic of Moldova, a very, very, very small country in the eastern part of Europe. I see here there are people from all around the world, and I'm so happy for this, for this change in our ways of organizing events. Now we can be in Miami, in Moldova, and participating in an event with people from Africa, from United States, and so on. And this is just amazing. And this is a great opportunity for the educational field as well, for schools to share, to engage, to participate, to learn from each other. And I'm happy to be today here. I will make a small introduction about me. I'm running a strategic communication company in the Republic of Moldova. I'm a strategic communication expert and trainer with over 10 years of experience in consulting businesses and companies in Moldova from different fields: education, medicine, ICT, health, banking, and entrepreneurship, and others. And I am a mom of 3 kids, 3 boys, and one of them is a learner of the Heritage International School. Actually, is what the school about I will be talking now. I will be sharing the experience now. Dear Tony, please go to next slide. How to strengthen the parental engagement in a fast growing school community, or how Heritage International School communicates with parents and the world. And before starting sharing our experience, I would like to present the definition of the Heritage International School. And I would like to move to the next slide, Tony. And actually, what is Heritage International School? It is the only international school established in the Republic of Moldova in 2017, the only Cambridge school in the Republic of Moldova, the only accredited and compliant member of COBIS in the Republic of Moldova, specially honored with the British Council's International School Award for outstanding global education in the curriculum in October 2019, and it was the first school in Eastern Europe, actually. This year, we launched the Heritage Lyceum, where students study Cambridge International A level. We are now in the 4th year of operation, and next year we will be celebrating the 5th anniversary. And this celebration will be, of course, with the Heritage community. I will be talking about it a little bit later. And what is the most important is that this school is a fast-growing community. Today, it has almost 530 learners and their family representatives, around 160 teachers, management, and staff. It's a big community for a very big, small country. Also, the Heritage International School joined the Global School Alliance international community, and we are very, very happy because we can share and we can learn together with our schools and educational institutions from around the world. And only during the pandemic period, we had almost 200 new students have chosen Heritage, and this is a great result for our country. And today's net promoter score of the school of the Heritage International School is 77. Next slide. In the first years of operations from 2017 till 2019, our main goal was a little bit commercial, to acquire new learners, as every school at its beginning, you know. And during first years of operation, we had a commercial tone of voice, and we were concentrating on presenting the advantages of the school, the international curricula, the mixed curricula, and all the advantages towards the other schools in Moldova. But the pandemic changed everything, and the same it changed our goal. The community, since the community have grown with almost 200 new students, we changed our goal and we changed our focus on consolidation of the community, because today we have a big community. Now we have to concentrate our efforts on engaging the parents, and I will be totally agree with Matt saying that the first and the most important and the more sustainable way of engaging the parents is engaging them in the learning process. I thought, even I'm a communicator person, I will totally agree. Communications comes as a second. Communications comes with tools and channels, but we really need to establish a system of engaging, a working system, not like a bold objective. I will totally agree. Of engaging parents in the educational process. And I was happy being a parent. I was remembering when I was engaged last time in the process of learning of my kid who is in the third grade. And I remember that on the occasion, these days, on the occasion of International Teachers' Day, he comes to home and he is like, "Mom, please help me. I have to craft many wings of different colors, and I have to prepare a speech for our teachers because I will read it on the school's radio. Please help me. I will prepare the speech. You will check it and you will confirm that from communication point of view it is good or not. And you'll help me a little bit to craft these wings." And I was very happy to help him. And on the second day in the morning, I was waiting the photos with these wings and heritage teachers to appear on social media page of the school. This, I think, is a kind of a parental engagement in the learning process of the child. And of course, when thinking about this, we do not have to to be afraid. Wow, it sounds so not understandable. We'll not be able to implement this in our school. No, any system starts with small and easy to implement things. And little by little, just to start start this process, and little by little, a great system like the one presented by Matt will be established in all the schools where there is a how to say in English, a wish. There is a strong wish of doing it. Let's say like this. And now, since our objective changed and we are focusing on consolidating the community, of course, the tone of voice in communicating with the community also changed. Now our tone of voice is more friendly, social, and personal because we are already a community. We are a family, we know each other, and we have to cohabitate together. Next slide, Tanya, thank you. And when starting to present the heritage experience, I said, during the pandemic, all of the schools were challenged. Let's remember which were our most important challenges, and let's define what we did for overcoming every challenge. And right at the moment, the start of the pandemic, our biggest challenge was the school management and parents' communication, because of course, like everywhere in the world, the parents were expecting which will be the first steps of the school, how the communication will be, how we'll be dealing, how everything will be done. And of course, the school leadership was taken by the school director, and right in the first day of so the lockdown, already a coronavirus updated section on the website was developed. Crisis management matrix was developed and presented to the community. Distance learning plan was developed and presented. Regular directors' letters to the community were sending. And here in this picture, even you see the director of the school teacher staff, and the ex-minister of the education. Even at that time, even the minister of education came, asked to come into a visit to Heritage International School for taking the heritage experience on distance learning plan and accommodating to the new normal, for sharing, for implementing it within the governmental schools around the country. And this, of course, it was a great achievement. And the message which we followed during the first period of lockdown was like, the school is open, only the campus is closed. Only published this message everywhere on website, on social media, sent to parents. Everybody understood the situation is taken under control and everything will be okay. The second challenge was how would the learning and operational process be organized immediately after the pandemic has started. And of course, a distance learning set of questions were included in our annual parent satisfaction survey. we are running an annual parent satisfaction survey within in the school, and besides of those most important blocks of information like learning, teachers and staff, communication with the staff, communication with the school, and different other aspects, we included a separate block of questions regarding the distance learning process, because we really wanted to understand, to know which are the expectations of the parents of the community, to let them to give us feedback, to give us ideas in order to improve the process. Okay, secondly, we launched the parents portal on the website with closed access for the parents. There is only one section with all the information on the wall, only one section which is needed for the parent to know about the learning process of the school and about the operational transportation, food, uniform, and so on. And also in our survey, we included a separate set of questions regarding the parents' communication with the school reception, since the school reception at that moment were the direct and most important touch point, communication point with the parents. We really wanted to understand how was the communication before the lockdown and how was the communication with the school reception after lockdown. And all the results that we found from the survey, we tried to adjust and to implement in our operational day-by-day activity. Next one. How to engage the parents more in the school management and decision-making process. And this challenge also in a very smart and simple way as well. Heritage adjusted its organizational chart and included a parent in the board. Of course, this parent from now is the most important and a very good ambassador, but each school for improving the Net Promoter Score needs to have ambassadors. And second solution, what we did is that in the whole questionnaire regarding the parent satisfaction survey, we have questions where we directly ask parents to propose. For example, the Heritage Club's roadmap is defined based on the proposal of the parents. When we finish the survey, and actually it is finished at the end of August, beginning of September, we adjust the new academic year club's roadmap based on their proposals. And when parents, and after that implementing their proposals and informing them about this, we consider and we feel that it is a strong way of involving them, and they are feeling proud, and they are feeling that the school hear them and take their opinion into consideration. Next one. How to engage the parents more in giving feedback on children's work and school's activities. And here, maybe it's not exactly similar like a digital portfolio of the students, but we said, okay, why not making, since we everything turned to online learning, why not making online arts exhibitions, for example? Why not making our school newspaper from printed newspaper to transform it into an online newspaper with broad access to parents to comment, to share, to see all the works of people. Why not doing this? And we started to organize digital arts exhibitions, digital choir of voices of school, of learners' voices, and other activities in a digital format for parents to access in a very easy way, and to appreciate, to be engaged, to like, to share, to put hearts on pictures. Day-by-day post on social media like everybody, and our International Herald, like a summary of the week activity. And one time we were thinking maybe not having it, but since the parents are so busy at the end of the week, they prefer, and they said that it is okay to, they feel very comfortable to receive in this Herald all the summary of the 1 week activity of the school. Next slide. From now on, this is actually our actual challenge, and maybe challenge of many of you, how to consolidate the school's community and improve the quality of the bidirectional communication process with it. And of course, since the pandemic moved us in online, we are very kind to come back to our physical events and physical face-to-face communication. And actually from the survey, we learned this wish of our parents. That's why we already defined the role, the strategy, communication strategy of the school for next academic year. And we included to have different types of face-to-face events, small events, non-formal, like coffee with teachers and management, or thematic events like how to help your children to choose her career path, and to invite a specialist. And especially such kind of events is for gymnasium and lyceum students. And this is a concretely way of involving people in parents in the learning process of children. Okay. Since in the morning, for example, the director is welcoming the students coming in the morning in the school. And when you are asking the students, what are you mostly like at the school, they're answering, the most liked thing is that in the morning my director is welcoming me in the front of the school, and he is so involved not only in communication with the children, with the learners, but of course in communication with the parents as well. And now having in the front our 5th anniversary, we decided that since our main goal now is to consolidate our community, we will celebrate this anniversary with our community, only on our own platforms, and organizing, we'll see which will be the rules regarding the within the COVID-19, but organizing face-to-face events, meeting people in face, meeting parents in face, improving the quality of communication. And actually, let's move to the next slide. If talking about how does heritage communicate to the world, maybe it is the same like many schools in the world are doing. We immediately moved everything online. We created a virtual open house being inspired by international schools. We've created a virtual open house with a lot of information, even explanations of the curriculum process by teachers, a virtual virtual tour of the school. You know, you go on YouTube and you have a tour of the school. So if you are in Africa and you want to come to Heritage, you can have this impression how the school looks, not only about the process of learning process, but the infrastructure and the good looking of the school as well. Organizing international events, and we are happy that Heritage already hosted several international events, and we are keeping to do it. We are happy that our teachers are are presented in the are participating in trainings and conferences, and maybe you know many of our teachers and our director as well. Virtual open house event itself for new potential clients, also it is only online, and it is given live on our platforms and on a national live platform called previous.eu, which has a very extended target and subscriptions. And of course, we cannot ignore the leadership of the school management, which brought Heritage International School on global, European and global educational roadmap, let's say like this. At the last slide, Tony, I have several recommendations regarding the engaging parents in the school activity, but from communication perspective. A person receives over 10,000 messages during the day, visual, textual, non-verbal, and so on. We are overloaded of different messages. So this is the first recommendation. Do not overwhelm parents with too much information. Second, do not use too many different channels and communication tools to share the same information. So, we have this, but let's send it through this communication channel, through Viber, through Facebook group, through personal mail, by mail, and so on. So you need to have a content strategy when communicating with parents, and use only one communication channel for one type of information, and do not double the same information on different communication channels. Okay. Structure the information like it is here in the recommendation. Pay attention to all communication streams in the school, because we do not have only teachers, learners communication. We have teachers, parents, school management parents, administrative staff parents. So in our school, for example, we have direct communication of the school management with the parents. We have direct communication of the administrative staff, like HR, like business processes with parents. And of course, we have the teacher-parent direct communication too. The more diverse the community is, the more challenging is choosing an approach to them and appropriate communication tools and channels. That's why it is very important to know your community members, to honor their diversity and listen to them. For example, when moving to online, our international community of parents increased significantly, very much. And now we have parents from different countries, different regions of the world. Of course, we have local, but the international community of parents is increasing. And it's very important in such a community to know your community members, to learn them, to understand them, to ask them who they are, which are their preferences, what they want, and take into consideration to honor and respect what they want, and to apply in your educational process. And of course, the measurement. Measure the parental engagement KPI every year and adjust your activities based on the results. Of course, make sure to inform the parents about the results, inform the community about the results of your research. Make them sure that all their feedback and recommendation are taken into consideration. Like I mentioned before, we define the roadmap of the clubs and we share them with parents. They feel part of decision-making process. And this is a real nice and simple and easy to implement type of engagement, parental engagement. And all this should be done in order to increase and to grow your ambassador ambassadors within your community, because the Net Promoter Score is directly influenced by the by the ambassadors of the school. At the end are the contact information of mine. If you have questions, please mail me, and I'll be happy to share.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Ludmila, that was amazing. And like, you know what, Heritage School sounds fascinating, absolutely amazing, very inspirational. I had to stop sharing so I could see if there's any questions in the chat, really. I even had questions myself after listening to you. I think it's very brave involving them in actual school management. Again, I know it's very difficult to please everybody. So when you're asking parents to involve as well, that must be very brave of you. One of my questions was, the surveys you do for parents, what sort of percentage response do you get from the parent population? And is there a minimum that you will actually respond to, is it to me?
So we are running the survey already the third year in a row, and over 30% of parents are answering to the, it's around 33-35% of parents.
Okay. That's not bad, is it? I say, as we say, we know when we do host these sort of things, the percentage of people who actually engage and who don't, but they are still watching, even if they don't actively engage. So they will speak up if they disagree, I am sure. I'm just having a quick look through the chat, see if there are any questions, because I know we want to move on because we've got a panel discussion. We've got two other members of people who are going to chat, but I just want to see if there's any just quick questions or important questions. Can we see? I'm just having a quick look through now. Does anyone, if anyone wants to put their hand up, if I can't see, I've got one that says, what happened was that the parents were not interested in the school community. How do they get them involved when they're not interested, when they've lost interest? It's sort of re-engaging with them when you've lost them in the first place. I don't know if any of the people who've spoken, Matt or Ludmila or Wayne, would like to answer that one. Is there any way of re-engaging with them when they've lost interest? Go on, Matt.
If you like. I mean, the schools that we work with, if I'm completely honest, probably tend not to have that issue quite so much because a lot of them are fee paying, but we certainly come across it a lot. And some of the other questions in here in terms of parents dropping their children off at school and expecting them to emerge 10 years later as a lawyer or a doctor or something and not have any involvement. I would say personally, break it down. It's human nature. You know, you're always going to have a hardcore, certainly in the school I worked in, you know, speaking as a teacher, we had a lot of parents who were just not interested, who didn't seem to engage, was the perception originally. But you've got to work out a way of having a conversation with them and finding a hook that will interest them. And that could be in normal times when you're able to do it, getting them on a school trip, getting them in for something, just having a normal conversation. We used to run coffee mornings, drop-in sessions, all sorts of stuff. Or give them something really simple they can do. A lot of the time, the barrier to parental engagement is a perception that it's difficult, that it's time consuming, that it's complicated, that it's maybe beyond them somehow. Give them something really simple that they can have an immediate success with. And it doesn't even, ultimately you want them talking about learning, but it could be something really simple like softer advice. You know, we talk a lot about things like, for example, if you've got young children and they're struggling to put their coat on, should you help them or not? Actually, in many cases, no, because it helps build up their sort of perseverance and resilience. And that's a really important learning skill. So even just sending out that softer level advice to start with is your entry point, I would say. So yeah, break it down, keep it, get a quick win under your belt.
Brilliant, Matt. I agree. Keep it simple, because not at different levels. You have to be very specific, I think, with instructions on what you want them to do and how you want them to engage with you. Another question.
And I want to just
go for it. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that also it's very important to understand better that the parents, the group of parents that don't want to, they lost their interest in being engaged, or they are not interested at all, and to find which are their hobbies, for example. At Heritage, we have a very interesting project called Founders Lecturers. And once per month, we invite a person from a field, speaker, an inspirational person, leader, to talk to children, to talk about their way case different subjects like internet safety or other subjects. And one of the solutions would be to invite to a founders lecture session one of those not interested parents. He or she will not refuse. Be sure. And after this participation or being in when he is presented in such a role, you know, of speaker and so on, the communication will change definitely. So we have to better know those parents who are not interested in anything. That's why in my presentation I said it: research, research, research. To better know your who are the members of your parents community. This is so important. The data actually is the king. So
brilliant, thank you, Ludmila. That is a good point, because obviously a lot of our audience come from varying types of schools in all different parts of the world. So knowing your own parents, knowing your own feeders and where they're coming from, there, you know, does definitely help. Because there's a question that Angela's put on there, advice for surveying the parents to know what sort of data, what level of communication they want. So again, I think that you've kind of answered that in that it's knowing your own community, but any advice on how you would do a survey to find out what sort of data they want, what level of communications, and the best way for your school. Could is there any of the panel would like to answer that one?
Tony, I'm happy to work through that. Just as Matt and Sarah mentioned, it's as we're trying to find out the I suppose building the relationships with students to get better academic outcomes. You still also is engaging the non-engaged parent as well to ensure that you're developing that relationship, and it's just finding that as Matt was mentioning, it's finding that in first, and once you're in, you're away. I think in terms of surveys and developing those surveys, it's really important that you want to be able to capture it within 10 questions. If you are asking a parent to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll through, you know, a survey, they're going to give up. It's like, oh, really? I think importantly, you've got to get back to say, what is it that we want to improve to ensure that the data that we receive, we can actually use. It's again got to be purposeful. Otherwise, you've just got data for data. And what you want to be able to ensure is to say, well, okay, here's the level of data in a simple format that is reflective, that is going to provide probably some the other element is balancing between quantitative and qualitative data. You're going to have the Likert scales between 1 and 7, and you're going to be, you know, always to poor. But it's really it's the qualitative data that you're going to be able to provide in a comment, or the opportunity to provide comment, or the opportunity for further follow-up, which is going to be really important to really narrow down your data so that you can take that data and then place it against your strategic plan or your strategic intents, whatever that you have in that space, and then have those key performance criteria that you can balance that data against as you go. And then if it needs to, have a good old phone poll, pick up the phone, genuinely have a conversation with them. And I think that sometimes schools are a little bit afraid of being able to just pick up that phone and have that conversation because you're not quite sure what you're going to get down the other line. But at the same time, it's about ensuring that your data is at the ability to improve your student academic performance and your relationships that you have within your community.
Brilliant, that's wonderful. Thank you. I agree. A small amount with focused questions, because you want for the answers you want between too much information, too many questionnaires, and too much data can be a bit overwhelming for parents. But I do notice actually William has his hand up. William, would you like to unmute? Do you have a question for someone?
Yeah, if I could address Wayne, you know, I'm from Concordia International School in Hanoi. We're, I guess, of a similar ilk in that we're a very strong academic school with an emphasis on character. And how do you, how do you put how do you convey the emphasis on character in your messaging your communications to parents, and also the academic rigor?
Yeah, thanks, William. I think it's it's really important to provide and look at, and all our headmaster communications are on our school website. If you go to and I'll share that here, but it's collegiate.school.nz. So you can get a sense of that level of character that we want to be able to bring through, the values, etc., that underpin all those sorts of things. I think there's nuances that you can bring. There's analogies. I talk about being in the glad I did column rather than the wish I had. I talk about about service and service learning and servant leadership. It's all those little catch cries that you're able to bring into your communications. You get ribbed a little bit by the students as you go. He goes brown again. But at the same time, that element reinforced through is hugely important. So that, yep, we've got our academics, we've got our knowledge, but at the end of the day, if that knowledge can't be imparted in a way that is good for the development of our communities, then the knowledge is really ineffective.
Brilliant answer there. We do need to be moving on, but David, you've got your hand up. Have you got a quick question for someone?
No, it's just basically to build on from Wayne's point on surveys, that great, fantastic to do surveys with parents, but also very important that you actually feed back these results to the parents. You show that you're actually actioning change. I think that's one of the big things, and transparency. I always talk about transparency with parents, and I'll focus on that further on this meeting. But that's really, really important when it comes to surveys and presenting those sort of results.
Good point, David. Good point. Oh gosh, we've got so many hands going up. Right, okay, I'll do the next two, but then we're going to have to move on because we have, like I said, we've got this discussion coming up. Azadine, you had your hand up quite early on. Would you like to unmute yourself and put your question?
Good afternoon, everybody. Here I have a say, both as a father and as an educator. We all know that during the time of the pandemic, we used to incite our teachers and our students to keep in touch with their school online, to keep in touch with their friends online, maybe to practice sports using videos online. Now that the pandemic is over, we have problems with students and teachers coming back to their normal everyday life. I mean that they are still attached to their mobiles. How can you deal with this? What ideas can you share with us as parents and as educators at the same time? And thank you for this fruitful webinar.
Thank you. As well, that is a good point. As everyone is getting used to certain ways of doing things, and it's trying to find that balance adjustment, isn't there? Would anybody of the panel like to answer Azadine about that? Okay, thanks for your input, Azadine. What we'll do is we'll move on, because I'm going to hand over to Andrew, because we've got two more guests we're going to talk to, David and Christina, who are going to be contributing as well. So Andrew, are you okay to take over?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a really interesting presentation. Thank you, Ludmilla and Wayne and Matt to this point. It's been a really interesting session so far. I'm delighted for the next bit of the conversation to be talking to two experts with different perspectives on how to engage parents in this digital world we're now in. I've got Christina Smolensky, who's the head of foundation years at St. Peter's International School in Spain, and also David Milner, who's the Director of Marketing and International Relations for Sedler School here in the UK. So I'm going to speak to Christina first and ask her some questions about how she's engaged parents from a learning perspective, particularly from a foundation perspective, which will be really interesting, I'm sure. And then speak to David about how he's engaged parents and prospective parents as we've moved from, into this very much digital communication sphere. So Thank you both for joining today. And Christina, if you're happy for me to ask you a few questions.
Yeah, hi.
Hi there, cool. Nice to be talking. So from a foundation perspective, I mean, sort of planning for a digital learning strategy must have been a real challenge. Could you maybe just talk a bit about that from a general perspective, but also really thinking about how you had to incorporate parents or guardians into that strategy? Because obviously foundation years, it must be really integral to get parents involved.
Yeah, so I am in charge of children from 1 to 5 at St. Peter's School. That's our foundation years group. With the online learning, I will be mostly speaking about the children from 3 to 5. For the parents of nursery, we offered another type of service. I would say that what was key to our planning was realizing that we are in a different timetable and a different routine than we are at the school. So even though the parents might have expected us to cover the 7 hours of the day, we very quickly realized that it's impossible, and we worked with the parents to show them the importance of their children doing other things during the day in quarantine rather than spending whole time on the screen. So rather than doing a 1 hour or 90-minute lessons for the youngest students, we divided them into small groups. So we had 3 to 4 children maximum working with one teacher in 15 to 20-minute blocks. And they would have, let's say, 3 sessions during the day, each of them 15 to 20 minutes. For us, it seemed like this is the maximum time that the children can hold their interest on the screen at the very young age. And that worked much better than working with a big group of 15 students. Of course, we did have some shared times, but they were more relaxing times or play times together when everyone went on mute and they could show each other things or do gym together or dancing or so. But we just found that having more than 3 or 4 children speaking at this young age at the same time was too messy and not really fruitful for them in terms of their learning. We also adjusted our curriculum. So we really went back to basics at what we wanted to provide for the children. So it was also to suit the parents. A lot of parents don't have the knowledge or the skills or the interests that they need to help their children with the content at home when we don't expect them to have all the science materials at home or geography materials at home. So we really went back to basic, focused on our phonics program and making sure the children are progressing with their writing, reading, listening, comprehension, maths, and the other activities like science were more play or experiment based. We also made sure we involved all the specialist teachers. So music teachers, gym teachers, meditation teachers, they all had their own lessons and were able to also have online classes. Yeah, so that would be that.
Fantastic. Just thinking about again about getting parents involved. I guess you would have sort of had preconceptions about how it would have gone. But thinking about once you got into that digital learning and you were communicating with parents and their children, what were sort of the biggest challenges you faced, but also maybe were there any sort of positives which you didn't expect in regard to sort of parental engagement?
Yeah, the challenges were definitely keeping the entertainment and the interest. We found that the first 2 weeks were all joyful with the children discovering iPads and computers and keyboards and online games. And loving having the teachers on the screen. But as the time went by, and here in Spain we were in lockdown for almost 4 months, it became harder and harder to get the children engaged. And I think it was also because of their mental state, missing their friends, missing out on, going to school, all their social life, and missing this routine. So I would say the biggest challenge was definitely keeping the mindset right and the motivation right not just for the teachers, but also for parents and for the children. So really supporting each other with our mental health. With meditation, we did a lot of online meditation where we would repeat some mantras with the children, or read stories about how to keep calm, how to relax, how not to worry. Every morning we had an activity called the worry jar, where the children could share with us what they've been worrying, what they are worrying about, maybe not seeing us, or that this will never end, and they would pop this into a jar with their parents in a symbolic way. So really focusing not only on the learning, but also on the resilience of our students and their mental health. The positives that I think also other speakers already mentioned were realizing the importance of having a learning management system or an online platform where everything is one place. It's easy to navigate for the parents. We've already used it before, but maybe there were some parents who have never logged in their school life. So just making sure that now we are continuously using that even after the COVID period is almost over. And the positives were definitely getting closer to the parents. And I think it was already mentioned, the parents have a higher appreciation for the work that the teachers do, and also have grown much closer with their child's teacher.
Fantastic. It's topical actually, because my next question was actually going to be from the parent angle actually. So I've got 3 young children. I've worked throughout the pandemic, so I managed to dodge home tuition myself. So my wife took most of the mantle there. But having watched her teach my 4-year-old son, or attempt to teach, certainly massive respect and even more respect for teachers. But it felt some days that actually she was more tired than my child was. Like she was it's quite a tiring process of online, particularly if you're not a teacher yourself. So did you feel that, or am I just being a bit hard on my wife in as much as the parent was touched?
So we really we didn't really force the parents to accompany the children in all the lessons. So whatever was happening in this 20-minute sessions 3 times a day, a child should be able to do it by themselves on the computer. That just means that there are no clicks or no typing on the keyboard. Everything they respond is oral, or they have to draw it on the paper and show it to the teacher. So we made sure that each child could just do it by themselves, even if the parents were working or busy. A lot of them were working online, so they couldn't sit through the lessons with them. So also all the material lists were sent the night before to make sure that the parents don't have to run around looking for a bowl of water or sticks or whatever we required for the activity, crayons or scissors or whatever. So we made sure that they knew what was coming up for the week, and the child was prepared by themselves to carry on with the lessons. We have overcome some of the struggles for the parents with the help of our school psychologist, and also, like I said, including activities for the whole family to enjoy. So evening story time, some of our teachers committed to log in at 8 p.m. to read a story. On Friday, we did a breakfast instead of a phonics lesson. So a time where we could share a recipe and all the families could cook. And then we spent 1 hour having breakfast together, teachers and parents and the children, and talking about their work or how the week in COVID is going, and having some healthy mental space, in the whole week of working online and studying online.
That's cool. So sort of you've surmounted the challenge really by preparedness, so really supporting that family with those resources, but also that support too. It sounds like you've done a great job. You've obviously emphasised mental health support and well-being support too. So that's great to hear how you've sort of overcome that issue. That certainly it felt like it was a big issue in our houses. Everybody got to the end of the day, and everybody was really tired from online learning. Just thinking about that sort of assessment perspective and foundations years being so crucial to a child's development, How much emphasis or importance have you placed on assessment, and how have you sort of tracked children's development at St. Peter's?
Well, we basically dropped the reports for that term. So obviously the children received comments and compliments individually on what the teachers thought they did very well in quarantine. It was very individual, depending on what the child was doing, might have been praising them for the independence or for their responsibility to carry on with their learning, or praising them for innovative play at home. But we didn't do any assessments in terms of reading or maths or other subjects. And the reason for that is that we thought it would be unfair compare a child who had a parent working with them full time during the lessons to a child that was by themselves, you know, most of the time, struggling to log in and draw on the paper and maybe show it to the screen, can't really show it to the teacher because it's not in the right way. So we didn't do any assessment, any formal assessment for the term. We assessed them more on their character, on their resilience, and praised them for that.
Fantastic. That's really good. Interesting to hear. And you obviously that's quite a quick pivot too. Just thinking about where you are today, are you back in the classroom fully now, or what's the situation in Spain today?
We are extremely happy.
Okay, cool,
we are back and we have some more freedom in terms of mixing some classes, up to 40 students now. So we are back and we are we are fully enjoying the freedom. So we're letting the children play with students from other classes, meeting other teachers from other classes. We've invited some parents who have been vaccinated to do presentations in the classes, again, reading groups, just to make sure everyone is back into, you know, being involved and really enjoying this time to see each other in person now.
Fantastic. I must say, I live just around the corner from my children's school, and there's something very reassuring about a very happy, noisy playground outside. So it's you know, the kids are back here as well, and it's really nice to hear that hubbub and that excitement of the kids being back together. Just one final thing from me, and I think you've talked about how to overcome challenges, and those challenges that you faced at St. Peter's. So looking positively, what do you think has been the best thing in your experience of teaching online? And are there things that you've been doing digitally which you think you'll keep doing despite the fact St. Peter's is back in class now?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me personally was realizing, like, it was a very important moment for me and for many teachers in our career, that you suddenly realize how essential our profession is. I really feel like the teachers and the medical professionals, the emergency professionals, they really felt like they were the people who had to hold it together. For everyone else, and you don't maybe you don't realize it every day, you know, with being at the school, but I really felt that we were not like any other online worker who can just zone out with their coffee for the day, you know, because at home I just think the responsibility of supporting families and supporting children with their mental health, especially, and with them, you know, keeping motivated to carry on with some normality, was huge for parents. I mean, for the teachers. So this was definitely something that will stay with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you should be very proud, and thank you so much, and to all the educators on the call today for everything you've done as a parent, particularly. It's enormous newfound respect on top of how much we appreciated you to start with. So thank you, Christina. I'm going to ask David some questions now, if that's okay, and then we'll see afterwards maybe about opening the discussion out a bit further. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you, Andrew?
Yeah, really well. Thank you. Nice to be talking to you. So to cut to the chase, I'm going to dive straight in, David, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So being in a marketing comms team at a boarding school in the UK must have been a massive challenge when COVID hit. I mean, what were those early days like when COVID came to the fore? And, you know, and what did you put together a priority list as to how and who you were going to communicate with first, and how you were going to manage that sort of crisis management at the start of the the
Yeah,
pandemic?
so it was, well, for us all, it was all a bit of a shock. Make sure that we had all systems in place at home. We all had the right sort of equipment. But in the early stages, we were very much turned from marketing into a complete comms office. That's what happened within our marketing department here. But we were quite fortunate because we have our own school in China, Rongchao Centre School, and we'd actually already learned quite a bit from them, who had already gone through and were a good 4 weeks into a lockdown, remote sort of learning environment. So our first priority was obviously communicating with those parents, with our current parents, ensuring that all of our children returned safely home, had access to work, live lessons in place, and regular interaction from our teachers, but also from our boarding staff, because at the end of the day, when they are with us, we are a full boarding school. Our boarding house masters, house mistresses, they are their second parents, and they actually spend more of the year with house parents than they do their own parents. So that was really, really important, that there was a communication from those house parents with the pupils and also the parents of those children. And that sort of communication continued throughout. But it's not just the current parents we need to think about, which was obviously from a retention point of view crucial, but our prospective. If we rule out our prospective parents, a school can't operate. Obviously, we are a business at the end of the day. We had the education side sorted, but we also need to look at how do we continue the momentum that was already in place pre-COVID. But we also had to recognise the support that the staff needed. So the regular communication that staff required, not just teaching staff, support staff, such as even down to the cleaners, boarding staff, marketing, admissions, and so on. And being a level of flexibility, because we've all discussed the challenges. Andrew, you said your wife had the challenge of remote working, but we all probably sat on Zoom meetings and were trying to deliver either teaching or conference presentations. And it was important that there was a level of flexibility. And especially around where staff needed to develop themselves, continue with CPD. So like my social media officer, for example, he was fully aware that this was going to mean that video content would be more important than ever. So he self-taught himself Adobe Premiere Pro, bought a drone and did everything that he possibly could. And so we had to also factor that in when we were looking at who we would communicate with. And finally, our community. All stakeholders really, from a communication point of view, it was very important, but certainly our local community, very, very small town. So we realized that there was lots of families struggling there and elderly people as well. So we set up hardship funds that they could access if they were short of food, if they needed money because they were out of work. And all of this was further information that we had to communicate through different channels, whether that was local Facebook groups around Sedbergh, whether that was on the village notice board. It was all of that had to be considered.
It's really interesting. I think there's definitely some parallels through every conversation today, listening to the different leaders and educators speaking today. I think the key focus points seem to be around clarity of communication. I think and also that empathy thing. Wayne spoke about it before, so it's really interesting that you've echoed the same there, David. And also then you touched on your social media manager. So my next question was going to be about you thinking about the prospective parents. You know, I suspect you've obviously exploiting social media more and more now as you're communicating with those prospective parents, but did sort of the content you were creating and the messaging that you were sending to prospective parents change dramatically during that period?
So, well, we were restricted on how much content we could generate. Obviously, from having 63 Twitter accounts, which are normally active every single day, every single department, pumping out photography, video footage, is that basically dropped overnight. However, we put things in place where staff were doing sports coaching videos, were doing live lessons. Obviously, the live lessons were very, very popular. So we still maintained a big social media presence, live streaming assemblies, live streaming events, webinars, and so on. So from a communication point of view, it didn't really change. I would say we stepped it up a gear and made sure that we were reaching every audience, making sure that our communication was also translated into the many different languages because of our sort of diverse culture that we have at SEDBA. So that was also crucial.
No, it's interesting. And do you think now in more of a digital way, when you're trying to communicate with parents, that video content piece is more and more important? Certainly, the more I talk to schools, the more emphasis they place on video content being really engaging for parents.
They do, yeah. It's something that it's very easy to engage it, even without sound, to be perfectly honest. It's actually just visually a million times better than a still flat image. But also, it's live, or it's pre-recorded, but it's actually genuine. And I think that's the thing. We worked, I would say, pre-COVID in very much of sort of video needed to be polished. It needed to be absolutely perfect, shot on high definition cameras. But I think COVID has made us realize that that's not always the case. Parents just want to actually see what the children are getting up to, and are wanting a genuine sort of representation of what the school's doing. And that comes down to prospective families as well. It's being transparent, it's being genuine about who you are.
Definitely. I think that's certainly with my Friday Club hat on, and also my virtual school experience hat on, you know, that the idea of personal over perfect, I think is really what seems to be striking a chord with schools that are doing well on their engagement with parents online. So that's great to hear you're finding the same. It's been great to see you at some in-person student recruitment events very recently, David. I saw you in Paris, maybe last week or the week before, but it does feel very much like student recruitment has become very much a digital process now for many schools. And do you think that's going to play more and more of a part in your future student recruitment?
Definitely. I must say that being back on the road and being able to board a flight and meet families in person was incredible. It was certainly the top 3 days I've had in the last year on 2 years. It's been pretty much 2 years since I was last overseas. But nothing will beat that. Nothing will beat face-to-face meetings with families, with our agents, with our partners. However, what it also comes down to now is, once we're face-to-face with them, how do we actually present ourselves?
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be factored in, that one-stop shop sort of experience. And we invested, and one of them's already been mentioned, the 360 tours. That was one of our big investments during lockdown, and one of the early things that we made sure we had in place. But most recently, we invested in Virtual School Experience, which is an online platform that some of you may already be aware of and using. And that creates that one-stop experience. And that was sort of something that we already had in place, which we were using to promote ourselves to prospective families, sharing personal information, bespoke sort of content relevant for their child or the particular market. And that was something we were using prior to being able to travel. But it was something which came in very useful when I was actually with families in Paris. So we were using that. And it went down exceptionally well. And it is a platform that I would certainly highly recommend schools look into, because it makes that sales marketing, I know sometimes we don't like that term, but it makes it so much easier because you've got everything you need in one place. And then again, if you are working with agents and partners, you can create bespoke experience so they have all the information that they need. You are giving them the messages that you want them to pass on, rather than them searching through your website and extracting that information themselves.
Fantastic. That's great to hear that you're enjoying the platform. I think something that has really just been sped up here is maybe that school admissions technology piece was a bit behind EdTech generally, and I think now more and more schools are understanding that your buyer or your prospective parent is, you know, they're seeing a fee-paying education as a premium product, and now it's very much a digital decision-making process. You know, they're expecting that premium level of service and that exceptional customer journey for their school to be delivered to them online as a parent. So that's interesting to hear the way you've adapted that. And then just thinking about recruitment from a digital perspective, do you think the parents are now going to consider a wider net of schools, maybe a wider sort of geographical location, because they can attend more open days, they've got much more information at their fingertips of a wider range of schools and countries? Or do you think, or are you seeing international student parents doubling down on a local market and preferring an international school in the country where they live rather than sending their kid to a UK boarding school?
Yes, well, I think parents may consider attending more virtual events. Obviously, it's so much easier. It's something that we will continue to do because obviously we can reach those overseas markets. We don't need to worry about inviting them to the school, but obviously the ideal situation is have them on campus. But now it's so much easier being able to do them virtually as well. So having that sort of hybrid model, I would highly recommend moving forward. But I would say with the majority of our domestic sort of families, they kind of already know the sort of school that they're looking for their child, whether it's based on location, accessibility, and so on. But what it does for us is it increases our target audience, our target market, and we will be frightened to market further afield. And that is something that we're already doing, especially when families are now, we're finding, looking to move away from the big cities or certainly have their children away from the big cities and studying in a more rural location.
That's really interesting. I'm conscious we're over time, but I just wanted to take one sort of real positive from you, David, and sort of another forward-looking question. With your sort of that recruitment hat on, what do you think sort of is the next big trend for 2022, say, in the way that you're going to engage with and recruit more parents and engage more families?
So from a recruitment point of view, we will be doing, like I said before, more virtual open events, but ensuring that we do them in different time zones. Forget about them being convenient for you or for the school. It's about being convenient for your actual market. So if they're at 4 o'clock in the morning, who cares? We'll be still running them. But also live stream events. So not just for prospective markets. I think this is a key area where schools can definitely invest in. But there is, I would say, more of a quality control required around certain live stream and music concerts and so on, and a level of investment is needed there. But that opens up your current parent body, also the overseas parent body, so they can actually see their children engaged in what's happening at the school. So they're two of the big ones, but also we'll be continuing to develop bespoke experiences through VSE as we develop and strengthen our sort of online presence as well.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. Thank you both, Christina and David, for your time and your answers. It was a really interesting discussion, so thank you. I'm going to pass you back to Tony, our key host, and she's going to tell me what's going to happen next, because we've obviously run over time, so I'm not sure how you want to go to me.
Thanks, Andrew. That was amazing. I think we've had, thank you so much for all the speakers. We've had some great, actual, really practical, useful information here, which I think a lot of people can take away and implement. And the biggest impact is how we can use technology now to help parents be more engaged, be more involved, and how, you know, how the pandemic has changed our ability to communicate with parents. I think it's fantastic. Do we have any questions? There aren't any specific I can see in the chat, but does anyone have any questions they want to ask the panel while we're still live? You can put your hands up if you like, or put it in the chat if anyone has any questions for us. There's not a lot, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you all on the spot again, like I did last time. I'm going to say we're going to do a photo shoot to say for everybody who has been here. So I'm asking everybody, can you put your videos on and all smile, make sure your hair's nice, because we're going to do a photo shoot to record this for posterity for the amazing people who participated. So I'm going to take up a couple of my colleagues now are going to be taking some screenshots and some photographs of everybody involved. Thank you so much. Smiles. I'm going to shut my mouth. Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. So I can't actually see any more questions at the moment. We did have a poll at the end, but I think, to be honest, it's all been answered and we have gone over time, but it's been a fantastic evening. So if nobody has any burning issues they want to raise now while we're live, you can contact both myself and Andrew for anything future. And again, a lot of the speakers have put their contact details in the chat as well, so you can contact people directly or through both our sites. So does anybody have any last minute burning desire to say anything? Otherwise, that I shall say thank you very much for attending, and good night, I think.
That's great. Thank you all so much.
Yep, I don't think there's any more burning, but thank you so much, and thank you very much for speakers and School Management Plus Andrew for participating too. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.